Hello and welcome back to the Up Zone where understanding politics is made simple. We are your two hosts, Mr. Elmer Floyd and myself, Tisha S. Waddell. We are both former elected officials. One of us is running for office again, and the one of us that is running for office again would be the one that is sitting to my right. I don't know which side he's on for you guys, but the one sitting to my right, Mr. Elmer Floyd. Mr. Floyd.
Oui, madame. Oui.
Look at this nice. Look at that. Look at this. Let's build a better Cumberland County. Re-elect Elmer Floyd for House, NC House, primary March 5th. You got all these little buttons down here. What do these buttons down here mean? What's
Well,
all this?
one of them is the William Chapel Board of Trustees. I was the past chairman of that, and the other one is a United States veteran, Fayetteville
Okay.
State graduate, and a proud member of the Phi Beta Sigma fraternity.
Okay, Mr. Floyd. Now what's this on this side? What's this?
Those are the things that I have accomplished within the 12 years that I served on the General Assembly, and that is bringing back revenue resources to the community, and that's the job of a legislator.
Is there anything on here that's like the feather in your cap that you're just that's the thing
Well,
where you're like, this is it?
I'm proud. The proudest thing that all of them are
Our
important,
accomplishments.
but the one wherein that when we used to attend a committal service out at Fort Bragg, it was
Okay.
freezing during the winter and hot during the summer. I was proud to put in that $125,000 showing that they could fundraise, which came up to about 800 and I'm sorry, $480,000 within 6 months, with plans to close in the committal center. So when you go out there now, it's cool and you have heat
Awesome.
there, and along with that was the $6.5 million to help do some improvement in that cemetery and Western Carolina Cemetery. So when you look at it, I'm very proud of that, and even more proud is when the city of Fayetteville, your city council, charge a veteran person, I think it's maybe $1,200 or $2,200 for parking in a handicap parking space, wherein that the statute read that he would have to be 100% disabled to park in a handicap parking space. But this person was less than that. And so, that statute was passed to allow partial disabled veterans to park in handicap, parking spaces. And
Right.
the $250,000 for our veteran court, because we are a veteran community. And one thing that, it sort of sent a alert to me was when the Veterans and Homeland Committee agency wanted $3.5 million for a sprinkler system in our VA rest home here in Fayetteville. And that
Mm-hmm.
was maybe 4 years ago. So
Okay.
that's, after I look at it, why would you want a sprinkler system into a building that was just built 25 years prior to? So, but, that was part of their request to us. But a lot of things in there, like $5.5 million for Fayetteville State to build a wellness center. The overhead sign, the first on Murchison Road to direct traffic onto the Martin Luther King freeway.
Right.
And
Right.
there were people that was talking for years, 4 plus 5 years, to cover a sinkhole in Fayetteville State, and we was able to find that $800,000 in a matter
And get
of
it
months
done.
to get it done. So it's a lot of things there that I'm very proud of. That as a legislator, that I was able to work across the aisle to get it done for Cumberland County. But if you
Right.
really look at it, Tish, if you look at the $132 million that someone wanted me to turn back the 412 million that was brought in the year prior, and this year 127 million. That's just about a $500 million that
Hmm.
Cumberland County received of your money that you send to Raleigh that
Absolutely.
came
It's
back
nice to get a return on your investment.
on your investment. But it comes with
Absolutely.
experience. It
Absolutely.
comes
Mr.
with
Floyd,
experience.
let me ask you this question, Mr. Floyd. Are you well acquainted with the boundaries of your this new district that you're running for?
Yes.
Well, then I will tell you this: you already have an advantage over one of the candidates, and I'm not going to say any names because I'm just not going to do that. But I will tell you that one of the candidates had door knockers in my neighborhood yesterday, knocking on doors, Mr. Floyd, and handing out their stuff. And when I saw the
Not my
slip,
stuff now.
oh no, it wasn't you. When I saw the slick, I opened the door and I said, "Excuse me, baby," to the little poll worker. They said yes. I said, "We're not in his. We're not in this person's district." They said, "You're not." I said, "Baby, nobody in this neighborhood is." Look, so about 10 minutes later, Mr. Floyd, I got a phone call, and it was so funny because the person that called me, we know each other from when I was out on the campaign trail. This person oversaw somebody else's campaign. They oversaw their poll workers, and they called and they didn't say anything. This all they said. They said, "I told them that had to be Tisha Waddell." That's the first thing that came out their mouth. I knew exactly what she was talking about. That person must have went back and told her this not the district. It's not. And I think one of the first things you have to know when you're campaigning is who to campaign to.
Well, again, Chief, not new eyes, but experience.
And if you
Experience.
can, I was very confused by that because I would have thought that this person understood how to find the boundaries of their district. But I guess never mind, I'm gonna leave that alone. Go ahead, Mr. Floyd.
Uh, you know, you learn your boundaries of your district. And key points and key areas that would aid you in the travel route of those persons that's in your district.
Absolutely.
So
So you know where to position your signs. Let me say this because I forgot to give this disclaimer before we jumped right into the gritty and the city and the word on the curb. Mr. Floyd, I am yet again battling these allergies. In conjunction with these allergies, there's this postnasal drip going on. If y'all see me blank my camera out for a moment, that simply means that I needed to blow my nose, and it's gonna be an ugly blow, and y'all don't need to see all that. So I'm still right here. I'm not going anywhere. But if that should happen throughout the course of this conversation, that is why. Listen, let me tell you something. And we were just talking about this, Mr. Floyd. What
mm,
I'm not gonna do is be over here putting a lot of medication into my body. So when y'all hear me like this, or you see me dealing with the elements, it is because I have decided that for my body, I would rather let my body go through the cycle of what it needs to go through than to be putting a whole bunch of stuff in me to try and mask the symptoms that I'm dealing with. So, yes, I do sound like a completely different person right now. My voice is a few octaves deeper. And I also have a lot of stuff going on. However, I'm all right. There's no contagion, and we are going to power through. And y'all are going to enjoy this deep voice today, and we going to keep it moving. Isn't that right, Mr. Floyd?
I hope so, T.
That's
I
right.
hope
Now,
so.
you were talking about these veterans, and you said something to me that really kind of ruffled the feathers. If I had feathers, they would have had them ruffled up on the back of my neck. Mr. Floyd, you said that our veterans home behind the VA hospital on Ramsey Street has recently closed, and I'm acquainted with that facility because my one of my girlfriends used to work at the VA hospital, and she used to share with me the work that they did there. So talk a little bit about that, sir.
Well, that's one of I believe it's one of the five VA facilities that the VA oversee or manage or whatever the Veterans Affairs Committee.
Right,
That facility, for those who do not know, is behind the VA hospital on Ramsey Street.
right.
If you understand the terrain of Ramsey Street, it's a deep slope. Okay,
That's right.
and anytime you have a slope, there's always going to be some kind of water concern because water is going to go downhill there. So one of the things that they talked about was after Hurricane Matthew was the leaking of the roof, which some say from that brought in mold and then water
Which is
running up under
horrible for
the
anybody's
foundation.
health. Yeah.
Yeah, water running up under the foundation. But the thing uh, that's there is that I sit on general government with the vice chair of general government, and during my tenure there, none of this, to my recognition, was brought to us in order to do some budgetary matters to resolve this building. The building itself, the facility itself is closed for the last 50 years. And now we into the 28th or 29th year of that building process. So it's
Right.
so when you're talking about tearing down that facility that costs millions of dollars to build, and you're talking about rebuilding that facility or there or at another location, that's going to be a hard quest. So
Right.
I think that the first thing that the general government committee is going to do is how can we repair and make the existing facility sound, and that's through using engineers and architects to address that. Now,
Right. Now you're
have,
talking about this committee. Talk about what is this? This is the Military and Veterans Affairs Committee.
yes,
What part do they play in this conversation? This is
well,
at the House level.
that's is that's the committee in which the military affairs committee reports to as it relates to their budget appropriation for the incoming fiscal year. That
Okay.
committee,
And we can see on this committee, we do have three of our Cumberland County delegates are
I,
on this. Wait a minute.
I believe it's all four.
All there are four of them. All four of them. We've got Representative Jackson, Representative Smith, we've got Representative Wheatley, and Representative Lucas. So all four of our members of the delegation are a part of this committee.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
but none of them is part of the joint oversight committee that met here in Fayetteville. I think it was last Friday. But their
Okay.
responsibility is that by being a member of that committee, you can communicate with the chair of the importance of calling an emergency meeting there to get some answer to the concerns that your constituent had about the closing of that facility. Now, I'm
So
saying
let's
your
share the joint.
and others.
Because I think sometimes people need to know who's making these decisions. So let's share the joint legislative committee's information also. So this is the joint legislative oversight committee on general government. Mr. Floyd, again, talk through what their role specifically in the closure of this VA facility. What is their role?
Well, their role in conjunction with the House work parallel there. Doing the budgetary process is that they sit in conjunction to hear that in order to expedite the budgetary process turn.
So then
That
these would be
factor.
the individuals who would say either we're going to fund this or we're not going to continue to fund this.
As part of the budgetary process, this,
Right. And then they would move that forward as a part of the budgetary process to be voted on in the inclusion of the entire budget.
well, they sit, they sit parallel with each other to hear the
Right.
presentation in order to expedite our time. But bear in mind
Okay.
that each house, even though they sit together jointly, but each chamber respectively, develop their own budgetary process as it relates to how much
But
funding
let
they
me ask you this because
provide.
I want to make sure that I'm clear. I want to be certain that I'm clear because this is still a little confusing for me, Mr. Floyd. So, as it relates to this VA, this home for veterans that was behind the VA hospital, these two entities would have conversations and receive presentations about funding for that particular facility. Not only that facility, but that conversation would be a part of that, and then they would make a recommendation. Correct me if I'm not correct. They would make a recommendation as to how to budget that for the remainder of the budget
funding.
conversations?
They will look at funding
Okay.
for that agency there. So it's a, I mean, each once the long session begins in the General Assembly, all agency comes before an appropriation committee. And that
Mm-hmm.
appropriation committee hears their request. Prior to that chamber provide a dollar value of what agency of what appropriation committee should have. If they say that there's going to be a 2% appropriation across the board, so that means that joint appropriation committee will look at spread that 2%, whatever that 2% dollar value is, amount down to the agency in which they have judicial responsibility to. Just like appropriation, it look at the 19 agencies are there. So that there's an offer. Well, the joint committee, the joint.
Let me pause you because you're very technically savvy in terms of how all of this comes together. And I need you to remember that you're talking to me who knows nothing. So the without the technological terminology, these committees get they get a batch of money to decide how they would like to see it divided up for the purpose of the things that they do in the budget.
Well, let's say this, that general government handle 4% of the overall state budget.
Got it.
Of that
So
four
they
percent,
take their 4% and they say how it should be allocated to the things that they have oversight over.
now let's say is that 4%. Let's say that it's $435 million. Okay, so that's what it is appropriated for the fiscal year prior to.
What does appropriated mean? Break that down for our audience. When you
Now,
say that's what's appropriated, what does that mean?
that's the money that somebody give to you.
Okay.
Okay, that's from the layman term. Is
So
that I go
somebody
first?
gives these people 435, we just making up a number. Somebody gives them $435 million. And what do they say to them when they give it to them in layman
Well,
terms?
it's broken down to various agencies based
So
on.
they say take this money and apply it to the agencies under your auspice.
No,
The ones that
each one
you
of those agencies receives some appropriation. So you take
right,
that appropriation. Say for instance, if it's the let's say the Human Relations Commission that was appropriated $665,000. Okay, of
right,
that $435 million. So they would say to Human Relations is that you have a 2% growth of $665,000. Okay,
this your
so
budget.
whatever it is, they try to give each one 2%. So they would
Right.
expect to see their budget only grow from last year 2%.
By 2%.
That's all.
Right.
That's all.
Got
So
it. Okay.
okay.
So the conversation, surely the conversation to close this facility didn't just happen in these two committees because there had to be some reasons for the closure other than
Well,
just budgetary
it
constraints.
was an agent. It was a agent, which was the military Veterans Affairs uh, uh, agency.
Federal agency.
No, state.
Okay.
Okay, which was created in I think it was 2016, and
Okay.
it was created so in that we can make North Carolina a veteran friendly state. And the
Got it.
money that was generated to come up with this $26 million was like scrambling the eggs. You sort of twirl the eggs around and see where there's money left, in the budgetary process, and you group this to establish, uh, uh, the agency, which allow us to demonstrate across this nation that we are a veteran-friendly state, that we look out for our.
Got it. Okay, so let me ask you another question while we're talking about money shifting from the VA hospital in these two committees. Mr. Floyd, as a candidate for a position with the North Carolina House currently, you have to be committed to raising money, right?
Yes.
And there has to be transparency in how that money is raised. So I know that there are certain periods with which campaign finance reports, which are the element that breeds transparency in where you get your money from and how you're spending it as a candidate, they are due to the Board of Elections at certain times. Have you all had to file a campaign finance report yet in this election?
Well, let me say to you, during non-election years, you file two reports, and that is in June and July.
Where are the balloons coming from, Mr. Floyd?
Hmm?
You didn't see balloons just come across your screen?
Now, I can't afford them, so it wasn't mine.
Okay, go ahead though. So you had to file two in the off season.
Two,
Have
two,
you guys had to file one yet?
we filed one, and last year was an off year, so that report ended, I believe, around December, the latter part of December, with a filing date no later than January the 26th, I believe it is, or
Okay.
that report will be late. Uh,
Okay.
and they began to assess somewhere in the neighborhood of $50, and it can go up higher. It depends
And
on.
that's a day, right? Isn't that daily?
I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, those penalties stack up very quickly. Mr. Floyd, let me ask you a question. So have y'all had to have the candidates that are on the that are fighting to be on these ballots moving forward out of the primary, have they had to file reports already?
yes, yes, that report again was due on the 26th of January, somewhere around the 26th, 27th. Uh,
What
uh,
do those reports tell a community? We've talked about this briefly once before, but what can, if a person is listening to us right now and they're like, okay, so why do I care about this report? Why should the average person care about this campaign finance report?
well, let me say very simple: follow the dollar.
But what does that mean?
Follow the dollar. So when you go and look at the campaign report, you follow the dollars and you can see how that person is receiving contribution, whether he is
Absolutely.
receiving say for instance, if you are John Doe and all your money come from the realtor association.
Then that lets you know that they believe that you are friendly to their cause.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
so that's the long and the short of it. A campaign finance report tells you who is donating to a particular campaign. It also tells you where the person or the entity that owns that campaign is spending their money.
Yes.
So how they're leveraging those dollars that they're getting.
And that's and that is key, and where the money again is where the money is being spent, and it should
Right.
be somewhat transparent, but a, a lot of times you have PACs or other organization, for lack of words, that is created, and you the public may not never know where these mailers are coming from.
Coming
uh,
from, right.
and it sort of helps the candidate because the candidate doesn't know where the mailers are coming from, but the
Right.
individual, I mean, it's sort of a trickery type thing, and they're very glossy, and they very effective. You know, it's just like it would say that Tish Waddell voted uh, 90% of the time with Murray James. Okay,
Right.
but what people don't really realize when they say, like they said, with one senator that is no longer there, that he voted with the Republican. Well, Tish, over 80 to 90% of the votes are bipartisan votes. Between 85 to 90% of the votes are
Right.
bipartisan
Right.
votes. And
Right.
so 90% of the time you're voting together. And 10% of
Right.
the time it's a toss up between issues between that 10%. That don't mean that
Right.
10%, follow whatever, So, we have a tendency to do that. And the beauty, well, not the necessary beauty. What I don't understand in our community, you're a tier one community. You rank
Which
80
means
out of
what?
100 counties.
Which means what?
You rank 80 out of 100 counties,
What
and
is
you
the
don't want
ranking
any
talking
money.
about? But what is the ranking pointing to? You're ranked 80 out of 100 in terms of what?
Poor, poor.
Right.
And I
Right.
can
So there are
understand
only 20 counties out of 100 that are poorer than Cumberland
you.
County.
Yeah. And you don't want any money. I mean, that's what mind boggled
No, but
me.
pause real quick. Let's go back to these campaign finance reports. So we are going to print. We're going to put on our Facebook page directions on how you can access a candidate's campaign finance reports, so that if you so desire, you can go and look and see who are they getting money from and how are they spending it. Again, the reason this is important is because if you see who's contributing to their campaign, now this excludes when you get campaign contributions from your family. Like if your family, say you have a family that's a contractor and they, or a family that's a realtor, that doesn't necessarily mean that the Realtors Association is standing behind your campaign. It just means that your auntie, who happens to be a realtor and wrote that on her information, wants to help her niece or nephew
Now,
out.
now let me
However,
teach
go ahead.
now that aunt, it can write a check, okay, but it
But
must
she
be,
cannot write it from her business.
yeah. So it must be, and you're correct. So, but the report requires you to have the candidate information. I mean the giver information.
Right. You got to tell their name, phone number, address, their occupation, where
Yeah.
they work at. There are certain information that you have to list. And it's for this reason. So the reason you want to look at those campaign finance reports is so that you can understand who your candidate is backed by, because who backs your candidate speaks to what your candidate is saying, maybe behind closed doors, as to what's important to them as they potentially move forward into legislation. Now, Mr. Floyd, I find it very interesting that often people don't talk about the money of it until they want to start talking about dark money. I always think that is so intriguing that when people get endorsements, they shout out the ones that that they feel really make them look good, and they're very silent sometimes about the ones that may be questionable but to their audience, but they'll take them all. A lot of politicians will take them all, especially if they come with a dollar attached. So I would say not only to the audience, check out those campaign finance reports, but to the candidate. Like we used to say when we played spades, and like we still say when we play dominoes and spades, all money is not good money. And so there has to be a time when you will say, no, thank you. I do not want your money. And there are certain people in this community that you should never, candidates, never take money from, because they will perceive that you owe them and they will call on you to repay them when you've taken that money. If you'd like a list of those people, feel free to reach out to me and I can share with you at least four of them that you need to actively avoid taking money from. Now, moving right along, Mr. Floyd.
Mhm.
Excuse me. The senior Democrats have a forum coming up. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, the Senior Democrat has a forum coming up on February the 10th at the College Lake Rec Center. And it's, well, they deem that District 42 has the most candidates. So that forum will consist of those four candidates in District
Okay.
42.
Now, speaking of candidates, Mr. Floyd, I think it's so interesting. We talk a lot about how the Democratic Party is just literally hemorrhaging registrants. Let me back up. We don't want to go there yet. Let's hold on just a second. Let's talk about this. I want to talk about something at the city level because I think it's interesting, and I'm eager to see how it moves forward. But the Murchison Road Choice Grant. Let's talk a little bit about that, Mr. Floyd. Before we talk about the meat and the potatoes of it, how do you feel about the Murchison Road Choice Grant?
But I think it's a good application, and I think it's good that the city applied for those dollars because it's their dollars anyway.
Right.
Yeah, but it comes to the city as a grant, and the thing that uh, somewhat concerns me is that the vision of the Murchison Road Garden is dependent upon federal grants. and which
Right.
those grants are not only being applied for by the city of Fayetteville, they apply nationally. And so, you're building all of this hope based on a grant that if it doesn't come this year, because you're competing with other cities, then again you delay the growth of the area, and each year it pushes back the growth of the area until you're able to secure those grants. But it's a beautiful plan that they have because they're talking about a bank addressing the food desert part of it there because there's no grocery stores. They're talking about rehabbing some facilities and combining
Right.
with Fayetteville State and the Department of Transportation had to be a part of it. So I don't know why you list them. And then you were saying that with the Cumberland County school, but the Cumberland County schools, as you relate to E. Smith, want to go toward Bragg Boulevard. So, you
Which
know,
I think they should.
yeah, I mean, it's a good plan. It's a good plan there, and they're talking about really replacing Rosemary Place, but T. Rosemary Place and its location may be one of the Department of Transportation long range plan is to convert traffic from Murchison Road and 401 bypass is to make that intersection sort of like a clover leaf on a highway. So,
Right.
it's all of these things have to be considered in there. And what they're also saying and preparing you for is that on Fort Bragg, there's 6 lanes. Once you leave Fort Bragg, they're preparing for you for 4 lanes with a bike lane on both sides. Once you get down to 401 bypass, they're expressing a greenery. So that means that it's going to be a funnel of traffic down to 2 lanes, but you will have some beautiful trees and you will have a traffic jam because you move
Well,
from
Mr.
6 lanes to 2 lanes.
Right. And I think sometimes it's very important for people to understand that there are multiple these things are not happening in a vacuum. There are multiple things that are, like you said, kind of converging at one point. There's a plan from DOT, there's a plan from the city. There's all of these different plans about how this area should shape up. And I'll tell you again, it's not happening in a vacuum. So what the city is doing collides with what DOT is doing. You were right. They're going to have to be involved. So, just never think that what you don't ever think that it's just arbitrary or it's just by chance. So again, your party is hemorrhaging registrants. You guys are losing people left and right in the Democrat Party. The Republican Party has experienced some slight gains. The unaffiliates continue to experience the biggest gains. I always assert that the reason is because the Democrat Party is tone deaf and they do not understand what their
But why you
people
want to talk
truly
about my
value.
party like this, Teach? Only thing we had to do is
Mr.
just change
Floyd,
our message, Teach. That's
Mr.
all we
Floyd,
had to do.
y'all got to change. Y'all do. Y'all
That,
got to
that's
change
all
your
we had to
message.
do is change our messaging,
But you
and
have
we
a
can grow
very
our
small
party.
group of very progressive Democrats who are creating the messaging and they are pushing the messaging, which is prohibiting your party from being able to do that.
Well, T, I'm simply saying to you and others that if we change our messaging, I believe, and you just mentioned the 84, 85,000, that we can bring these person back into our
They're not
party.
coming back, Floyd. They're not. Once you piss your girlfriend off real good, good
There's
enough
still
for her
hope
to
for me, though,
really
T.
leave you.
T, there's still hope.
Now, once she done packed up and she has moved on and she got a new man now, she ain't coming back to you.
Well, T, there's still hope, I say. I mean, I understand
I
what you
say
were
you
saying,
might.
T.
I think if you change your messaging, you might have hope of being able to. Parties have rebranded before. The Republican Party and the Democrat Party have rebranded before. They've changed messaging, and we did see a resurgence in registrants when they did that. And so, if the party, I think that this party is at they too far gone. It's too toxic at this point.
T, this is my party. I mean, I know that you're unaffiliated, but
All day, every day.
I still say that there's hope if they change the messaging and
Mr.
look
Floyd,
at
you know how you say you a lifelong Democrat? I'm a lifelong unaffiliate.
when well, I just say that there's still hope for my party that
Well,
we can.
who's gonna lead the charge to change the messaging? Who is that person?
Well, well, Tisha, I was talking to your daughter at one point in time. She always mentioned to me the
The
cloud,
who?
the
The
cloud.
cloud?
Yeah, we gonna have to
Okay.
go into how they say that you store things up in the cloud.
Yeah, you
We're
gonna
gonna
have to
have to
get in the
go up.
cloud.
We're gonna have to go up
Yeah.
there and pull
Let me
somebody
tell you,
out
I
of the
know the
cloud.
one who sits on the clouds and he don't care nothing about y'all message. Let me say this though, I think it's very interesting because we do see somebody who is seeking to be seated in office, and they are an independent, and it is very interesting because we rarely see this. So Zach Taylor, and if you all notice, let me go ahead and give them a shout out before I do it again. We are using graphics and we are showing you articles out of City View today. I believe that they do a very good job of doing balanced reporting. And with the inclusion of now Paul Wolverton as one of their writers, I think, and Mr. Floyd, we saw this in the article that came out last week when Paul dug a little deeper into the whole issue with the redrawing of the maps, which, before we get into this last topic, was such an interesting article to me because everybody else in the article was like, it appears that way to me. It appears that way to me. But the one person who it was actually done for, who knew he was supposed to buy a house in Spring Lake, and because he didn't, they had to draw this map and include him in it because he didn't keep his end of the bargain. Mr. Colvin said, that's not the case. So we are supposed to be, this is how I read it. We are all supposed to ignore the logic of what is laid out before us and believe this unbelievable tale that is being spun, that there was not any consideration at all given to this. And that is not at all the reason why the maps were drawn that way. Because no, why would I say in one article that I've been watching Mike Colvin for years, thinking about him being my successor, and then turn around and have the maps redrawn to include his neighborhood and then endorse him? No, that's all just it's just all a coincidence. It's not even, I don't, ignore the coincidences, ignore the logic. Yeah, we're not buying it. We're not buying it. And not just because Floyd is sitting here and because he's running for this seat, but we're not buying it because it doesn't make sense. But I say all that to say that I believe that Paul Wolverton does a very balanced job in reporting. So that is why we're using City View Today's, excuse me, their articles and their graphics, because Tan's not here anymore to draw graphics and to pull this stuff together. So we got to get it from somewhere, and we're getting it from City View. Floyd, this guy right here is out doing what a lot of people think is impossible. He is out seeking to be on the ballot, but he needs 2,170 signatures, 2,170 signatures in order to be even included on the ballot. Why? Because he's unaffiliated. Guess what I think? I think that is ridiculous. And I think whoever goes to Raleigh needs to seek to change this law. I don't think they will because they don't want us on ballots easily, because they know that if we can get on the ballot easily, that affects the Democrat Party and the Republican Party from being able to maintain their power. But Zach Trailer is out here knocking on these doors, y'all. He is knocking on these doors. You see, Miss Audrey McKinney is signing that. And listen, Zach, if you're watching, let me tell you something. If you have not already gone to get your super voter list from the Board of Elections, go get it. It'll tell you what everybody's party affiliation is, and it'll give you their address. You come knock on their doors. I expect to see you knocking on my door, Mr. Trailer, because I am an unaffiliated voter. And whether I agree with your messaging or not, I don't know what your message is, but whether I agree with your messaging or not, I believe that you should have an opportunity, just like the other candidates, to be able to position yourself to run for this seat. What you think, Floyd?
Well, I think that he has a hurdle to get to by by March the 5th. He had to arrive at this signature. So not only would it be 21-7 there that he need to hover somewhere around 5,000 there. because some person will sign the petition but may not be a registered voter within the district. So
That's why
in
he should
order
get
to
that
take
list. That's
that's
why he
what
should get that list.
but if you get the list, that is good. Some people, well, some people are transit. Some move in and some move out. But he can in the evening, as he moved through to get the signature, is to double check his list to make sure that those persons are registered voters within that district as it relates to the Cumberland County Board of Commission. Because some people
Right.
may have changed register, may have changed address there.
And you and I were having banter about this last night about what it means to have him on this ballot and whether that is an automatic signifier if he gets on the ballot that he will automatically draw the unaffiliated vote. And I told you that I don't believe that that's the case because unaffiliated voters don't care about your party. We're not like Democrats and Republicans where all it takes is for you to be registered in the same, have the same affiliation that we have, which is not an affiliation, and that's going to automatically guarantee you our vote. So I think that he still has a huge hill to climb ahead of him, even if he gets these signatures and they are verified, because then he has to have a message that resonates not only with the unaffiliated voters, but also where there's some balance between the Democrat and the Republican Party, so he can pull votes from all three pockets. But it's
Well,
not impossible. It's
Tish,
not impossible.
Chief, let me say to you, the unaffiliated voters have grown. Our state population has grown there.
Absolutely.
When we look at the overall picture, and what disturbed me is that yes, we are second as it relates to voter registration, but when we look at I gauge a lot from the council of state positions, and they are 10 council or state positions, simply mean that they're running at large statewide.
Right.
Okay. So when I see 6 out of the 10 members are not Democrats, it let me know that not only do we have unaffiliated and we have Republican, but we have a lot of card carrying Democrats. Now,
Which means
when
what?
mean they just simply carrying the card. Now, in our community,
But they
you
won't carry the water.
know, we
Yeah.
in our community, you can say that 90+% of the African American that are registered Democrat are going to vote Democrat.
Right.
So you know that, and I
Because
have
I
to say
think, Mr. Floyd, and we talked about this too. I think that those who are card carrying Democrats are not black people. I think that the black people who are registered as Democrats tend to have a diehard Democrat heart.
yes,
I think
yes.
it is the white people who are registered as Democrats who tend to be a little bit more conservative in the way that they leverage their party affiliation. And I think that often what you observe is that many times you see people who will say that they are of a particular party affiliation because it distances themselves from the toxicity that they perceive in the other party, but they vote according to their conscience, not according to their party. Unfortunately, especially in the older black community, there's the perception that Democrat is right and that anything else is just not good for black people. And because it's hard to break that perception, I think we will continue to see Cumberland County be solidly Democrat in their vote.
Well, Tish, now you are correct.
Wait, let me fix something I just said before you say anything, Floyd. Let me fix something I just said. I did observe many of the people in the older community that are black take a chance on an unaffiliated voter. And I saw them do that multiple times and turn around and then support the right and the choice that that particular individual made to be unaffiliated. So I will say they're not going to jump over to Republican. They are not about to vote for a Republican, but they will support an unaffiliated voter. I'm proof of that. Go ahead, Mr.
Okay.
Floyd.
Mark Robinson came here a couple of weeks ago, and it
He's
was.
an enigma, though. He's different. He's
Now,
different.
I'm just saying there was a few African American out there at his gathering. Trying,
I would have gone to that. Did you if I was one of those kind of people that enjoyed those activities, I would have gone to that. Floyd, did you read the write-up that Pitts put in the paper? It was, to me, it sounded like Pitts was singing his praises. He did it cautiously, but he certainly was saying, this is a message that I can agree with.
Well, it depends on which environment you're in, and the messenger that is bringing that communication, to you, and the person who is recording it, and it may be visual or printed,
Yeah,
but
I think
but
he wrote an article. Marshall Pitts wrote an article, an editorial in the Fayetteville Observer, and when I read that article in the Fayetteville Observer, I said it sounds to me like Mark Robinson impressed Marshall Pitts, which is a hard feat to do if you are a Republican, because I think Marshall Pitts, I don't know his party
well,
affiliation, but I think he's always demonstrated that, at least here locally, he's been very supportive of some of these Democratic people that we have in this community.
well, you know, when there's a lot, just like I was talking to a friend of mine's last evening that I was asking, and she's part of a affiliate. I mean, part of an organization, and in talking, she was saying that she was talking about basically our agenda, and she was saying that in rural North Carolina and in rural Cumberland County, something that the African American community are very conservative about. She said they are very conservative
Absolutely.
about certain things, and they don't care who bring it to them. They are
But Mr.
very
Floyd, that's
conservative.
the problem with your party. They don't understand that even in the city, the Democrats that are diehard Democrats are also like the people, and I'm not talking about the younger generation of new progressive Democrats. I'm talking about the people who, they've been Democrats since the 60s and 70s. These people are very conservative also. And so the messaging that your party exudes does not line up with their value system.
See, that's why
It doesn't line up with
you
what
were
they're being
telling me
taught in
earlier,
church on
T,
Sunday.
about the young lady that left the man. Okay, but I think that if the gentleman had did a better communication with the young lady, they probably would have still been together.
Yeah,
Okay,
if he
so
stopped trying to be something that he wasn't supposed to be.
yeah, but I'm saying though, but there's still hope that if he had just changed some of his thing that she, just didn't like. Okay.
Well, I'll say this. I appreciate you holding out hope for your party. I'm a firm believer that all hope is lost in this two-party system. And I think that the only way we're going to see something change in our nation is if we change the way that our nation is doing the things that our nation is doing. And Mr. Floyd, this will be my final words. I believe that there's a scripture in the Bible that says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, will turn from their wicked ways, humble themselves, pray and seek my face, then will I hear from heaven and I will heal the land. Our land is toxic and it needs to be healed. And I think that
That,
we invest so much energy. We invest so much energy into how we can restructure our political system. But those of us who are believers, and this ain't for everybody, but those of us who are believers, we need to turn from our wicked ways. We need to pray. We need to repent. We need to seek his face so that he can hear from heaven and heal our land. And that's just that. I appreciate the conversations we have about politics. It's fun to talk about the politicians and the work that they're doing. But at the end of the day, it's not as important as what I just said. So, Floyd, you give your last words, and that's going to be that for today.
oh, well, Tish,
Oh, wait,
there's
wait, wait.
always here.
Don't give me the last words yet.
Okay.
I almost forgot, Mr. Floyd. I got something else I want the people to hear. Hold on.
Okay.
I want to share something I heard the other day. You be thinking about your last words while I'm sharing this, okay?
Cumberland County needs a representative in Raleigh who has the experience to get things done. former Representative Elmer Floyd served on 7 standing committees and 15 non-standing committees. Floyd served as Vice Chair of the Appropriations Committee of General Government, Vice Chair of the Ethics Committee, and Vice Chair of Redistricting. Floyd brought $132 million to Cumberland County, in which his colleagues asked him not to support those funds. Our community is financially near the bottom of the 100 counties in North Carolina, and Floyd fought to keep those funds in the budget. He always will fight for Cumberland County. We need Elmer Floyd representing us in Raleigh. Now it's not the time to send an inexperienced person to Raleigh. We just don't have another 16 years to undo what's been done. Learn more about him at elmerfloyd.com. Early voting starts February 15th, and election day is March 5th. Re-elect Elmer Floyd for NC House.
I'm Elmer Floyd. I approve this ad.
Paid for by the committee to elect Elmer Floyd.
Well, Mr. Floyd, what are your closing words?
Let the work I have done speak for me.
And that is the gritty in the city and the word on the curb. Make sure that you tell a friend to tell a friend, like, share, subscribe, and follow. Thank you for dealing with me, having to turn my camera off, for coughing in the camera and all that stuff. I appreciate you, Mr. Floyd. Thank you for sharing this almost hour with me today. It's always a pleasure to sit next to you. And y'all make sure that you tune in next week. Oh, wait a minute, Floyd. Wait, don't hang up yet. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to play.